Hi there, immigration attorney Connie Kaplan here. Let's address the main differences between being a permanent resident or having a green card and finally getting that naturalization and becoming a US citizen. So I'm going to address a lot of topics, many topics. And the reason for that is there are different things that you must be aware of, and each of them has pros and cons, different timelines, different things to be aware of. So let's just get started. So again, I'm immigration attorney Connie Kaplan, and our office is located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. However, we help immigrants everywhere make the United States their permanent home. And remember, doing nothing changes nothing. Let's get started with part one, okay? I'm just going to give you a brief outline of what we are going to discuss, and it's going to be as follows. Green card versus citizenship, what are the key differences between one and the other. Then the second topic of my discussion is going to be the top 5 ways of obtaining a green card or permanent residency in the United States. The third is going to be benefits of US citizenship. Basically, why do you need to upgrade? Why do you need to apply for citizenship? The fourth thing is going to be a step-by-step chart on naturalization, and I have a flow chart I'm going to go over and kind of explain the process and the timelines. And then we are going to address some of the immigration myths that we have heard about all the time, and what are some of the common misconceptions about becoming a US citizen. And the last one, overcoming barriers to immigration and tips on how to navigate the process successfully. So let's get started, and we are going to get started with number 1. And yes, I have my cheat sheet because it's a lot that I want to address with you guys today. Okay, so let's get started. Green card versus citizenship. What are the key differences that you need to know? First, let's address the definitions. What is a green card and what does naturalization get you? Green card or permanent residency is a legal status that allows you to live in the United States permanently, but with certain restrictions, and I'm going to address them again later on. Citizenship is becoming a full member of the United States, so to speak, with all rights, responsibility, and obligations that attach to that. And it has the advantage of having that highly coveted US passport and constitutional protections that are only afforded to US citizens. So those are the main differences. Now again, a green card or permanent residency, even though it's called permanent residency, may not exactly be permanent. It could be a 2-year conditional residency if, for example, you have obtained your residency through marriage, and at the time the residency was granted to you, you have been married for less than 2 years to your US citizen spouse or permanent resident spouse. Second thing, what are the rights and privileges? So for green card holders, permanent residents, they can work and live in the United States. Very minimal restrictions. You can travel in and outside the United States, but there are limits there. But cannot vote in federal elections. So let's talk a little bit about working and living in the United States. Generally, that applies to 48 contiguous United States. Yes, you can work on a yacht, for example. We have many people, we are in Fort Lauderdale, so we have many people who work on yachts. You can work for the US government abroad. You may be able to travel in and out, generally speaking, without restrictions, but there are restrictions in the amount of travel that you can engage in during the period of time that you are only a permanent resident. Now, US citizens, on the other hand, they have all the constitutional protections that are afforded to those people who are born in the United States, so are US citizens by birth. They can vote in federal, state, and local elections. They can hold public office. They can sponsor family members more easily than a permanent resident could. And they can travel with a US passport. Now, what are some of those responsibilities and obligations for either category? For green card holders, for example, you must maintain residency in the United States. You have travel restrictions, and you need to potentially renew status if, for example, you have a 2-year conditional residency or your 10-year residency card expired. You may also be subject to deportation, now called removal, under certain conditions, depending on some of your prior actions. Okay, so we are going to address those in a minute. Now, US citizens, on the other hand, they must serve on a jury if they are so called. They are obligated to obey all US laws, just as everybody else, including the permanent residents or those undocumented. However, US citizen may be drafted for military service if required and if we are at time of war. So let's talk a little bit about the responsibilities and obligations that the permanent resident has, because this makes a difference in our discussion as to why you might want to upgrade from being a permanent resident and having a green card to becoming a US citizen. So, maintaining residency. You cannot live outside the United States once you obtained residency in the United States. Most of the time, the residency is granted to you, generally speaking, through family, for family unity, for family reunification. And so you getting your residency and moving back outside the United States is frowned upon. It's a no-no. Can that be done under circumstances? Under certain circumstances, yes, it can be done. However, you may need to apply ahead of time for a re-entry permit under certain conditions, or if those conditions have changed while you were already outside the United States, you may need to apply for a returning resident visa. During your application for naturalization, they will look at your entire travel pattern and time spent outside the United States in deciding whether you abandon the residency or not. All right. If you stayed outside for too long, not only your card may be expired, but you may be asked to sign an abandonment of residency when you come back into the United States. There are obviously ways to prevent those things from happening, but that requires serious planning, and it must be done ahead of time. All right. You must renew your status. Yes, you are a permanent resident, generally speaking, unless you commit a crime or you lied to immigration. You are going to be a permanent resident until such time as you become a US citizen. However, what do you need to do? Your card will only be valid for 2 years or 10 years. You must extend that status, so you need to apply for renewal of your permanent residency. Now, what is the path to become a citizen? I'm going to highlight for you in a little bit on how you can apply for naturalization and what are some of the other benefits that come with it. Now, that being said, there are many people that we talk to on a regular basis who think they have no status or they are only permanent resident, and yet it turns out that their naturalization is denied later on because of facts they didn't disclose or facts they were not simply aware. I mean, some of these people have not talked to their parents or grandparents in decades or in a long time, and because of those specific facts in their immigration history or family history, they may already have derived citizenship or acquired citizenship. They are not the same. So you can be a citizen by birth, by deriving citizenship, by acquiring citizenship, or by the process of naturalization. So what I'm going to address further on, it's going to be specifically naturalization. Okay? Now, before we get to that, second big topic, how can you obtain green card or permanent residency in the United States? So let's focus on that. Generally speaking, there are 5 main ways. There are others and there are subcategories. I'm going to discuss in general and most common ones. One is obviously family sponsorship. Family-based petitions are the most common, where a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident can sponsor certain family members, either immediate relatives or a little bit more removed. For example, U.S. citizens can sponsor into immediate relatives, right, such as spouses, children, and parents, and there is no need to wait for a visa to become available. On the other hand, there are sibling petitions or parents sponsoring adult children or permanent residents sponsoring other categories. And for those are considered family preference. And how long that process takes, oh my goodness, could take anywhere between a year and 25 years. So yes, that line that people say, get in line, doesn't really exist. Now, family sponsorship was the most common option. The second most common is employment-based option, where you find an employer willing and able to petition for you for permanent residency. Some of those allow you, the foreign national, to self-petition. So generally speaking, all the employment-based categories are EB1, EB2, EB3, and so on. EB5 is investment, and that one is, the $1 million everybody talks about. In general, EB1, EB1A, EB1B, EB1C, those are for highly educated individuals at the top of their fields. People with advanced degrees who have significantly contributed to their field of endeavor. Then we have EB2s, where those are professionals, people who have a marvelous business idea, for example, that want to start a business in the United States. Some of those could qualify for the National Interest Waiver, where they can self-petition. Just as those extraordinary and exceptional ability in EB1As, these people on EB2 and IW can qualify by contributing to the United States to something that contributes to the national interest by obtaining a waiver of the employer sponsorship. So that's where NIW comes from. And then we have EB3s with skilled and unskilled individuals, depending on a level of education and the position, and so on. So one of the common myths there, unless I have a degree, I cannot do it. Yes, you can. It is absolutely possible. It's just the process will take longer. You may depend on the visa bulletin. For certain categories, it takes forever. It also depends on the country you come from. So a lot of issues at play there. And for the employment-based categories, you also have to undergo a labor certification process, and that alone could take 2 years, okay? Now, the third option is the diversity visa lottery, so the green card lottery, where unless you are from one of those countries that is excluded every year about September, October, you can enter one entry, only one, in the lottery for that particular year. And if selected and you don't have any inadmissibility issues, then you can then apply for residency. It requires a minimum of a high school education. Now, the fourth one is refugee or asylum status. And this is a lot of confusion going on there. Refugees are those individuals who are still outside the United States and have obtained refugee status, generally speaking, through the UN CHR, okay? I don't even remember, High Commission for Refugee, HCR, UNHCR. That acronym, it always escapes me. So those are outside the United States, for example, people from Sudan, people who are living in refugee camps, they apply and then they need to be selected, and then they wait for their visa to become available when they come to the United States. Those applying for asylum, on the other hand, are those individuals who are already on US soil. So you are applying for asylum once you are physically located in the United States, and refugee law and asylum law are totally different. They are not the same. And our firm doesn't handle refugees at all. The refugee or asylum status is generally granted to those who fear persecution, have been subjected to persecution in their country, or have a fear of persecution should they return to their home country. And there is if approved, if granted, there is a path to permanent residence after that. Now, asylum, two different ways: affirmative asylum, where once you are in the United States, you apply with USCIS. Defensive asylum could be, one general example is you enter the United States, they placed you in deportation or removal proceedings, and then as a defense, you are applying for asylum. That's a defensive asylum. Rules are different. You need to know what you are getting yourself into. You need to claim one of the grounds for persecution, and you actually need to prove it. Okay? Depending on where you are in the United States, your chances of getting approved asylum could be significantly higher than other places. For example, Miami asylum cases are only approved at the rate of about 3 to 4%. So when you're looking at approval rates and everybody's applying for asylum, that doesn't mean everybody's being approved. Most of them do get denied. Yes, there are plenty of cases who get approved, but in the grand scheme of things, most asylum applications get denied. And they are going to be denied even more so if you have transitioned to coming to the United States from your own country. You went through a couple of countries and maybe you stayed too long in one of them, therefore establishing some sort of residency there. It could be because you have citizenship in another country. The government would expect you to live in your other country, not necessarily in your country of birth. So those generally could be the reasons for denial, outside of the fact that you maybe have not proven your asylum claim. There are the fifth one is special programs and humanitarian relief. And there we are talking about U visa for those victims of violent crimes, T visa as in trafficking, and that applies to labor or sex trafficking, or under the VAWA or Violence Against Women Act. What people fail to understand here under the VAWA, just because it's called Violence Against Women's Act does not mean it doesn't apply to men. Half of our clients are men. Half of our clients filing that type of case are men. There are plenty of men who are abused, and you do not necessarily need to show physical abuse. It could be emotional, psychological, financial, and it's usually is a combination of all those things. So that completes the second topic that I wanted to talk to you about. So remember, 5 ways to get a green card: family, employment, humanitarian, diversity visa, and special programs or humanitarian relief outside of asylum and refugee. Now, some of these lead to permanent residency and some of them take a long time. Third topic, benefits of US citizenship. Why should you upgrade from green card to citizenship? 1, voting. Voting. You live in this country, you want to have a say in what happens in this country. In order to have a say, you need to vote. And yes, you can vote for whoever you want. It's still a democracy, okay? And you can participate in federal, state, and local elections and shape policies that are pertinent and directly affect you. Second thing, you have expanded sponsorship of families. So people as those who are lawful permanent residents can only sponsor spouses and children. As a US citizen, you can sponsor siblings and you can sponsor parents. So you do have more family that you could theoretically sponsor and bring to the United States. Now, there is obviously a big difference in security, peace of mind, and permanence to being a citizen versus a permanent resident, because you can live outside the United States and never lose citizenship. You cannot lose citizenship based on minor infractions. You cannot be deported. You can stay outside for long trips. Okay, so there are a lot of advantages. We do see people who lose citizenship for misrepresenting facts, not disclosing facts. Not disclosing things that are material to them obtaining permanent residency, and then by mistake government allow them to naturalize, they can take it away. If you want more information on that and see how politicized it has become, you can look up Operation Janus, Janus, and as related to naturalization, and you'll be able to get a lot of information about denaturalizing those who obtained citizenship by naturalization. Now, what is, most people get US citizenship besides the right to vote so they can be able to travel freely outside the United States, because the US passport allows visa-free travel to most countries or obtaining visa on arrival to some other countries. Employment opportunities. If you are a US citizen, you are eligible for different levels of security clearance, and you are able to obtain employment with the federal government at different levels, possibly having more compensation as well. Now, obviously, peace of mind. There is nothing that protects you more than having US citizenship. Is that 100% foolproof? No, because I explained why. However, the best protection you can have against deportation, against other things, is citizenship. For example, I'm just going to give one example. We are in Fort Lauderdale. We have a very large LGBTQ community. As a result of the DOMA litigation, most of our clients are scared that they would lose their immigration benefits if their same-sex marriage will no longer be recognized. Well, becoming a US citizen would protect you from having your permanent residence taken away as a result of that. Do we expect that to happen? Not necessarily, but that doesn't take that fear away from our community. So my advice to every single one of you who is a permanent resident and is now eligible to apply and apply as soon as possible. Now, let's talk the step-by-step how the naturalization process works. And I have a flow chart I am going to share with you guys. And I'm going to try to address it the best I can. And again, this is general advice. This is not 100% applicable to you. I do not know anything about any of your situations, so this is very generalized, okay? So as soon as this chart pops up, I will gladly share and we go over it. All right, so let's go over this chart. As you can see here, what do you need to do first? First, you need to be eligible to apply for naturalization. Who is eligible to apply for naturalization? Those who have been permanent resident for at least 5 years can apply for naturalization. It's actually 4 years, 9 months, and a day, because you need to apply. You can apply 90 days prior to the 5-year period. I don't know why 90 days, because they do take longer than 90 days currently. In the cases of marriage, if you have been married to a US citizen for a period of 3 years, not 5, 3, just 3. Even if you have a removal of conditions application pending, if you are still married and living together, you can apply for naturalization based on the eligibility criteria of the 3 years. In addition to the time period, you also need to show good moral character. What does good moral character mean? You did not misrepresent You did not lie to the government in order to obtain an immigration benefit. You have not claimed you're a citizen to obtain a mortgage or other applications or to obtain a job. You are physically present in the United States. You had continuous residency in the United States. Remember in my previous section when I mentioned that you cannot stay outside the United States too long? Yeah, this is where it comes in. They are going to count every single day that you are outside the United States, and you need to meet the thresholds for continuous residency in the United States. Now, just because you may have had a longer trip or you stayed outside the United States longer, it does not mean you cannot apply. If you can overcome the presumption that you abandoned your residency, and that alone, it's an entire discussion, okay? The next thing, you need to prove your knowledge of English and civics. Now, this is what you need to show, generally speaking, should you file or you should not file for eligibility for naturalization. Second, filing the application with supporting documents, okay? Filing the application, if you can see all the steps here, filing the application and forms, the actual form, it's the least of your problems, okay? So to speak, everybody thinks immigration is just forms. It is so not it. So you need to know exactly what you are answering. You need to understand the language of the questions. You need to understand the minefields that are in that 20-page form, 21 pages, I think, at this point, okay? So you need to understand, if you do not know the difference between physical presence and continuous residency, you do not have any business filling out this form on your own. If you do not know what crime involving moral turpitude is, you should not be filing this form on your own. If you do not know the difference between a weapon and a firearm, you should not be responding to this on your own, okay? You do not know how to calculate the days in and days out of the United States. You should not be doing this on your own. Now, in order to fill this application, you also need to have supporting documents that you may or may not need to submit to the government, but you will need the documents to have all the information that is necessary, as accurate as you have it, without raising the flag of misrepresentation. So what kind of documents are we talking about? All the marriages and divorces, all your tax returns since you became a permanent resident. Make sure you are on a payment plan if you owe IRS money and you paid a substantial amount back to the IRS since you started the payment agreement with them. Make sure you didn't miss filing any tax returns. Make sure you don't owe child support. Make sure you are up to date on child support. There are so many different things that could disqualify you besides crimes. Okay, yes, you had a traffic ticket. Yeah, you may need to disclose it. You may not need to disclose it depending on the type of traffic ticket. Was there an accident involved? Was there injury involved? What else happened at the time of the traffic ticket? Unless you can make that determination on your own 100%, you have zero business doing your naturalization application on your own. All right? Now, third things. As soon as you are filing the application, the receipt is issued, and the timeliness of that receipt varies depending on whether you are applying for the naturalization online or on paper. Actually, if you are applying online, and most people are eligible, you're actually saving even $50, I think, the difference between filing online and filing on paper. They want to encourage everyone to file online whenever possible. After the receipt has been issued, they are going to schedule you for a biometrics appointment to verify that you are indeed the same person who previously applied, to make sure you have not obtained any criminal matters since you became a permanent resident, and generally to make sure it's you who is applying for this application. In some cases, depending on how recent your last biometrics were with USCIS, they might waive those requirements, and they may send you a letter that says you do not need to come for a biometrics appointment. You still need to, when you go to the interview, and everybody gets an interview. This is mandatory. There is no such thing as, I've been a resident for 20 years, I'm just gonna get sworn in. No, you need to go for the testing, and there is no such thing as, no, you're not going to have an interview. Because every once in a while, I don't know where this started, we get people who say, oh, my cousin's telling me that if I've been here 20 years and I've been a resident forever, I don't need to go to an interview. Yeah, you do. You do. All right. Now, after the biometrics appointment, that's what triggers your background checks, and assuming it's all clean, they are going to schedule you for an interview and citizenship test. So you, in the process, sometime between that and here, they could request additional evidence. Sometimes it's additional supporting documents about your taxes, about your child support, about anything that affects your good moral character. And for purposes of naturalization, the good moral character is 5 years. However, that does not mean they can only look back 5 years. It just means that, generally speaking, they are going to look at 5 years. But if there is anything else in your history, they can look back all the way to when you became 18, or even before that, if, for example, you had a criminal record. So they can look back as far as they want. There are certain offenses, criminal offenses, that would forever prevent you from becoming a US citizen. In that case, you shouldn't even get this far. You shouldn't even apply. An immigration attorney, a very good immigration attorney, can advise you whether you should apply or not. And sometimes that alone requires extensive research into your record and the case law at the time of filing and at the time you committed the offense. Now, let's say you don't have a response that is due for additional evidence, they didn't ask for anything, then you are going to attend your interview. At that time of the interview, you're going to swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Under penalty of perjury, they are going to ask you all your questions from your application, so you should know those. And they're going to look into your good moral character and see if you're worthy of becoming a US citizen. And the government can allege anything against you. It's your job to prove that you didn't do it, or it's not you, or whatever the case may be. They are going to test your knowledge of US history, US governance, in the civics task, and then they are going to test your English, reading, writing, and speaking English. And you should be preparing for that. Some of those resources are available online. You can buy flashcards. The government doesn't provide the flashcards, but you can buy them. And you just need to make sure they are the most recent, because every single election cycle, the names may change. So you attend the interview. Again, if there is something that the officer at the time of the interview is not satisfied with, they may request additional evidence. So you may have submitted additional evidence in the beginning. You may have responded to a request for evidence before the interview. They can request more even after that. We had one client, for example, went through the entire interview and then got the oath ceremony notice, and the day before the oath ceremony he had a fight with his spouse, and now he's in court, and that case has been pending for 1.5 years. So yeah, things happen. So then you're going to go to your oath ceremony, and at the time of the oath you are going to become a US citizen. Again, remember, it is not the time you passed your naturalization interview. It is the oath ceremony when you are becoming a US citizen. On that day, they are going to grant you your certificate of naturalization, and now you are a US citizen. So what happens once you are a US citizen? You receive your naturalization certificate. Yay, congratulations, it's been a long process. Now you can register to vote. Generally speaking, on the day you become a citizen, the supervisor of elections has a table there. You can register to vote right then and there. You can apply for a US passport, and you can now petition for immediate relatives. Okay, so generally speaking, that is the process. So the naturalization process, I described that. Let's go over to the next topic. So that one is going to be addressing some of the myths that are associated with the process of becoming a US citizen. Okay, so myth number one, green card is as good as citizenship. Yes, it's not, nowhere near it. As an immigrant, and it took me 16 years to get my own papers, there is nothing like becoming a US citizen. You can vote, you are protected from removal from the United States, and you can sponsor other family members. Okay. Second myth, only people with perfect English can pass the citizenship test. That is so wrong. That is so incorrect. Yes, basic English is required. You need to be able to understand the officer asking you a question about your person, like when you enter the country, how did you enter the country, where do you work, things like that. So you need to know the answers on your application, and you may be eligible for a reduced test depending on your age and how long you have been a permanent resident, but there is no such thing as a full waiver of the entire interview process. There is no such thing, no matter what, whoever tells you that, okay? And then for the citizenship test, again, you can study. The citizenship test comes with about 100 questions. You need to answer about 6 or 7 of them correct. And if you answer usually the officer, they go up to about 10 questions if you got some wrong. But if you answer the first 6 or 7 correct, they stop. And then you passed your citizenship, the civics part of the test. The next thing, is just the form. I'm just going to fill out the form and I'm going to become a citizen. No, I explained the process to you guys. You apply. To apply, you actually need to know almost all your information from all your prior immigration applications. You need to have documents in your hand. You need to show good moral character. You need to show that any history that you have had doesn't prevent you from becoming a permanent resident and that you are still eligible. So there is a lot that goes on. I have people who want a waiver of the English test and they want to do the form on their own. So basically you're saying to the government, I'm filing this on my own. I speak basic English, but please, can I have my basic English waiver approved? No, doesn't work like that, okay? You can't have your cake and eat it too, just like anything else. And you should be careful. Like I said in my previous section, there are so many words there that are legal interpretations of the questions, such as physical presence and continuous residence. They are not the same. Domicile and residence, not the same. Crimes, every single one of those questions out of the 80 questions that are there, it's a landmine. You need to know what you are answering. For example, let me give you an example. There is a question that says, have you ever committed a crime for which you have not been arrested? And most people go, oh no, I've never been arrested. I'm always complying with the law. I have never had any run-ins, never been arrested, never had an issue. That does not mean you didn't commit a crime. It could be that you didn't know it was a crime. It could be that it became a crime after. It could be that you come from a place where it is a crime, even though it's not a crime in the United States. Let me give you one example. For example, LGBT couples. There are plenty of countries out there where same-sex marriages are illegal, and being in a same-sex relationship, not even a marriage, could subject you to death, could subject you to criminal prosecution. So yes, you did commit a crime, Now, because you are no longer in your home country doesn't mean you didn't commit the crime. You did commit the crime, but now you have not been arrested because you are not under the jurisdiction of that country. So you need to know how you are answering that. Very similar to people who think, oh, I just had this tiny little thing and it was back in Belize and it doesn't affect me because they're never gonna know what happened in Belize. Yes, they will. Okay. Think about those things before you consider filling out the form thinking is just a piece of paper. Okay. The next one, while you can't apply if you've had any past legal issues, any run-ins with the law. That's a myth. Yes, there may be many crimes that may forever disqualify you from becoming a permanent resident, becoming a naturalized citizen, or ever applying for naturalization. But that is not the case for every single crime. It also depends when it occurred in relation to you becoming a permanent resident. How did you end up in that situation? Do you have any defenses to that? Did you admit to the offense or was it dismissed? Was it not charged even if you were arrested? How long was the sentence? What is the maximum possible sentence? Where did the crime occur? In the United States, outside the United States, and even within the United States or within the same state? It could be different. Let me give you one example. We are in Fort Lauderdale. We also have many clients from Miami. The prosecutor in Miami, in order to allow you in diversion program or pretrial intervention, does not require that an alleged criminal disclose the facts or admit to the elements of the crime. If it's your first time offense and you meet all the other criteria, they would allow you in pretrial intervention or drug court or whatever it is. And at the end of that program, if you successfully complete, you no longer have that charge. It's going to be fully dismissed. That is not the case in Broward, for example, where we are. So here, you actually still need to go there, but you have to admit to most of the elements of the offense. For immigration purposes, an admission is the same as a conviction. So it may have been dismissed, but if you admit it on the record, it's the same thing as having been convicted, which is why we work with criminal defense lawyers. And criminal defense lawyers call us on a regular basis to advise on how to properly fashion those pleas, if we need to, in order to minimize the damage or the immigration consequence of that alleged criminal activity. So, minor issues don't always disqualify you. Disclosing them is essential and 100% must discuss with your immigration attorney. So that's that on the myths. Hopefully I helped you a little bit there. Let's talk about overcoming barriers to navigating the process successfully. So seek professional advice. Hopefully I gave you enough information to realize there is no such thing as a simple question. We get this all the time. I only have one question. Can I file and how much is it going to cost? There is no such thing as a simple question. This is the entire analysis that an immigration attorney has to go through, and a lot more in depth than what I'm telling you right now on this video, in order to be able to answer that one simple question. We do not know if you're eligible. We do not know, how much is it going to be until we meet with you, review documents, and talk to you. Just because, oh, I've been married for 20 years, I never had any run-ins with the law, and I never left the United States, doesn't automatically make you eligible. So we do not know those questions. It's never a simple question. And an accredited representative, for example, with Catholic Charities, if you qualify for their services, or an immigration attorney worth anything, they can advise you on this, and you should seek professional advice. Now, you need to stay organized and informed. And what do I mean by staying organized? From the moment you entered the United States until after after you get your certificate of naturalization and that highly coveted US passport, you are going to live your life under a magnifying glass, and you need to prove that you are worthy of every immigration benefit that the US government is going to give you. Because immigration in the United States is not a right, it's a benefit. And in order to qualify for that benefit, not only do you need to meet the eligibility criteria, but you need to show that you are worthy of discretion. Okay, so many people get upset and they don't understand that the officer can deny your case, and sometimes they do, sadly, just because they didn't like you that day. Okay, but they are always going to blame it on you're missing a document, or you're not having this, or you're not having that. No, they are going to exercise their discretion. Okay, and it's not much you can do about it except overwhelm them and overcome those presumptions with evidence. So when I say you're going to live your life under a microscope, what do I mean by that? Every single bank statement, every single page of that statement, even those pages that are blank, you know, those that say intentionally left blank, save them. Start saving the receipts to the restaurant and combine those with the picture if you are doing it based on marriage. Join your financials and join the financial responsibility. It's not just the mortgage and the lease. They want to see that as a couple, if this is a marriage-based case, you have entered into that marriage in good faith, and you continue to join your financial resources and have a life together. Okay, so keep a detailed folder, electronic, usually it's fine. Save those documents, all those PDF downloads of every single statement from the banks, every single insurance claim, a proof of you being on each other's health insurance, life insurance, car insurance, titles for the cars, retirement plans, so on. Think about your dog and cat, okay? Proof of residency, proof of your travel, all those boarding passes, all the travel stamps in your expired passports from 20 years ago. Yes, save all of those. And always use USCIS or a government website for updates. I'm giving you this take on this, but this is my take. I am an immigration attorney. I've been doing this for a very long time. However, the best source is always the US government. Do they make it clear for you? No. Do they make it easy? No. But that's why you hire an immigration attorney to minimize the mistakes, the delays, handle the delays for you or with you, give you peace of mind, and have somebody you can call in case something happens or in case you have questions, because calling the government doesn't lead you anywhere and they do not work for you, contrary to their mission statement, but that's another story. Manage your financial challenges, budget for legal fees and document costs, budget for those translations for the medical exams. It's not just legal fees and filing fees. Additional evaluations, especially for employment-based, where they need to evaluate your degree or degree and experience after your degree, experience in the field. So all those things will cost you money. Budget, save for it, and do not let the fees stop you from hiring a professional. Most law firms, at least those that I know, offer financing options through various different options, okay? So don't let the fees stop you, and you get what you pay for. Just remember that. You get what you pay for. Language and cultural adaptation. If you think you are going to apply for naturalization, take ESL classes. English as a second language is available to most colleges or local libraries, community programs for cultural integration, and local support groups. And for example, where we are, Hispanic Unity offers them, and there are plenty of private courses as well. Now, understand deadlines and timelines. I cannot stress this enough. You need to properly file. You cannot file too early. Okay, yes, you can file too late, but you cannot file too early. Filing too early can lead to rejection after they already cashed your check. Keep track of expiration dates of your green card. Keep track of when does your travel permit expire if you are traveling outside the United States. Keep track of how long ago you left the United States, or how long you have until you have to return to the United States to not break your residency. Keep track of your fingerprinting schedule and interview appointments, and don't ever be late. Next thing, prepare for the interview and the tests. There is nothing like studying on your own for the English test and the civics test. You can do that and practice the possible questions with a friend or a family member. There are ways for those of you who may have had, for example, a traumatic brain injury, or for some other reasons you have a diagnosis of dementia, Alzheimer's that prevent you, or language impediment, speech impediment, whatever it is that prevents you from studying for the naturalization exam. There are ways to get a waiver for the civics portion, okay, if you can get a specific form filled out by the doctor. Immigration officers sometimes push back on those. Sometimes they don't accept them. They give you 90 more days. It's a lot more complicated there, but you do have options, all right? And the last thing, mental and emotional resilience. There is not much you can do to get the process to move at the speed that you want it to move. Okay, you need to be able to deal with the delays. You need to be able to deal with denials. And remember the success stories, okay? Remember all your friends who have become US citizens. Remember the peace of mind that you are searching for when you are applying for naturalization. So delays and denials can be stressful. That is where having an immigration attorney by your side comes in. Yes, I'm going to say it again. It is not about a form. And a good immigration lawyer is your partner. You can reach out to their team when you need to throughout your case for things that have happened, things that have changed, anything that may impact your eligibility for naturalization. So I am hoping that this very long video was very useful to you, and maybe will make you think a little bit about not sitting on that green card for too long and applying for naturalization and becoming a US citizen as soon as possible. We are available should you choose to work with us. However, strong encouragement, please work with an immigration attorney, not with a paralegal, not with a notario, not with a document preparer. They cannot provide you legal advice. An immigration attorney can. So I look forward to helping you out. Please, my link is below. Our contact information is there. Comment, and please reach out to us directly if you think this is something that you would like to do, or something that you want our assistance with. Good luck, and I hope I'll get all of you to have that US passport. Bye.